were any of your parents entrepreneurs? Like, where are you getting the entrepreneurial insight from? Because I mean, obviously now you have it, but I think it's
Yeah.
something that you learned, or maybe you've seen it at an early age and then you picked it up later on.
Yeah, I would say my mom is entrepreneurial. So my parents actually split up at an early age, right? So um, my mom and my dad, they're both Chinese, and they actually moved over to Japan to grab their PhDs because China was actually at the time rolling out like this international program where they were able to send kids off to, let's say, Japan or Germany to study from there. So my dad actually, um, IQ wise, was he actually tested as like one of the top people in school at the time, and China was already highly competitive as it is. So he was actually sent out to Japan.
Hmm.
So he got a PhD in physics, and my mom followed with him to Japan and got a PhD in geriatrics. Um, so as far as like entrepreneurial experience or endeavors, they never really went through it from a business standpoint earlier on, right? It's like my dad was, because the culture in Japan was very interesting.
Hmm.
It's the culture where you grab one job, you stay at a job for 30 years. If you actually leave that job, you're kind of screwed. Um, so that's the culture in Japan. So my dad got into investing, I think pretty early on, which had its own highs and lows. Right? But my mom, however, her entrepreneurial spirit, I think she carried that over in terms of how she raised us. It was me and my two siblings, because we have a crazy backstory in terms of how we even arrived to the US in the first place, because she actually got over to the US as a postdoctoral researcher at Harvard.
Hmm.
So she had to grab a very highly specialized visa that's applicable for people that has a very unique skill set. And her manager at the time in the US and at Harvard was able to vouch for her. So that's how she landed herself in East Coast in Massachusetts. And then when we followed a suit 3 years later, um, when we first applied for visa, we actually got denied. So all of us actually got denied. So we weren't able to come into the US. The reason being, I think and this is just our interpretation of it. It's very standard for maybe like a single mom to be in the US, but if her whole family applies to visit, there's a reasonably high likelihood that they could stay, right? It's like for one reason or another. So actually, the first time we applied for it, they turned us down. They turned all of us down. So my mom needed to figure out, all right, well, how do I get them to come over here? Because one of the reasons she decided to stay in the U.S. was to be able to bring all three of us together. It was me, my sister, who's a year younger, and my brother, who's 4 years older. Because after the divorce, we were all, as a family, we actually split up. My brother and I, we were with my dad's side. My sister was with my mom's side. So she wanted to bring all three of us together and also plant us in the land of opportunity, if you will, in the US. Right. So for her, her next set of action was like, okay, well, how do we get them in? And what she thought of is if there was on record, let's say one instance of us having visited the US and we left, right? It's like then it would probably build more trust, right? So she actually planned a vacation for us to visit Hawaii, and this time instead of applying from China to the U.S., come from Japan
Hmm.
as friends, not to visit her, but planning for a vacation to Hawaii for a week and then leaving. That would work, and it did, right? So like we actually visited Hawaii. That was the first time we came to the U.S. in 2004, I think in June. Naturally, we came, we left, right? So at that point, the next time we applied for a visa, we got approved because
Hmm.
they're like, oh, this person, they've already been in the US before. It's like, cool. They're approving us. Um, then after that, we were able to visit my mom. And as soon as we got there, she was able to plan accordingly to the extent that by the time we visited, she would be able to start our green card process. So that was actually how we were able to start the process for getting a permanent residency in the US so that we didn't have to leave after like 6 months. So we were able to stay for schooling. So like her entrepreneurial spirit in terms of how she thought outside of the box, problem solving, right? Overcoming obstacles, perseverance. Um, that's I think a good chunk of where I got it from. Speaking out loud is kind of cool, right? Because like I haven't thought about that in a little bit. Um, and my brother Henry, he I see as a older mentor for sure. Right, he's 4 years older, and he has been very entrepreneurial actually. Um, ever since we were in, ever since we were in late high school, So that's where his interest had taken place, and he was a big inspiration in terms of how I even selected my major at UMass Amherst of designing my own major. Right, so I built it. Right, it's like for those that haven't heard of what that means, it was an interesting curriculum offered by our school, UMass Amherst. It's a public school, where you're able to just piece together what is it that you're looking to study. So it's called individual concentration. Right, so for me at the time, I was like really into fitness, but then what? Right. So I started taking exercise science, nutrition, kinesiology, right? It's like the exercise science, communication, psychology. And then I also started digging into like business, like marketing, management, because I was curious. So I just started digging into all these courses. I gotta say most of it wasn't that helpful. But yeah, that's where earlier on I drew my entrepreneurial inspiration, if you will, and then that kind of formalized into something that's practical in college, bit by bit.